Hey everybody, Big Dave again. Gorgeous day in Morro Bay. The ocean looks good back there. Probably about 70 degrees. Jackson wants to go surfing after this. I think I'll try to give that a shot. I'm not the greatest surfer, but I'm trying to learn. So this is your Unit 2 study guide. This is the take the place of an exam. It's worth 75 points. You'll have your vocabulary, your study guide, and you will have an essay question. So remember on the study guide to type the questions out and the answers so I have an idea of what question you're answering. So on the study guide, you can leave out the part where it says study the following maps. The next 9 questions there, or 8 questions I guess, would come out of your textbook. So I'll leave those up to you. Where it says additional hints, I'll go through those with you right now. Understand the term primate city and know some examples in Europe. A primate city is a city that dominates the country economically, politically, and culturally. So a good example would probably be Paris in France, London in the United Kingdom, probably Oslo in Norway, Warsaw in Poland, Prague in the Czech Republic. So those are a lot of good examples. Let's see, Athens in Greece. So you can just throw some of those down. That would be fine for me. Know the periods of major Russian Soviet territorial expansions. Okay, 1460 to 1650. This was a time of expansion east towards the Pacific in Russia. And the Russians actually went all the way to Alaska. They were there by 1784. And as you may know, we ended up purchasing, the United States did, Alaska from the Russians in 1867. So 1460 to 1650, eastward expansion to the Pacific. 1680 to 1725 is the time of Peter the Great, famous Russian leader. There was an expansionism northwest towards the Baltic Sea. Russia defeated Sweden in a war, and they moved in that direction. That's 1680, 1725, northwest to the Baltic. 1760 to 1800, time of Catherine the Great. There was expansionism, Russian expansionism around the Black and the Caspian Seas. 1850 to 1900, there was expansionism into Central Asia, into like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and those general areas. Okay, next, know the countries of Northern, Western, Southern, and Eastern Europe, and where the standard of living would be highest and where it would be lowest. Okay. Generally, Northern Europe would be like Scandinavia, the Nordic countries. Um, we could probably put the Baltic countries in there, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Western Europe would be more like France. I'm not going to get them all here, and you put down as many as you feel comfortable with, but France, Germany, United Kingdom, Ireland. Let's see, we'd probably want to throw Netherlands in there, Belgium. That would be enough probably for you to write down. The countries of Southern Europe, let's see, name a few of those. Those would probably be like Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece. Eastern Europe, there's a bunch of them. So let's see, let's name some. The Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania. There's a ton of countries that came out of Yugoslavia, so you can throw a few of those in if you want. Slovenia, Croatia. Um, we probably would want to put Albania into Eastern Europe. So there's a whole slew of them, and you can look those up in your book and write them down for me, okay? All right. Oh, as far as where would the standard of living be the highest and the lowest? It would be the highest in Northern and Western Europe, a bit lower in Southern Europe, and lowest in Eastern Europe, because they've gone through that transition from communism, to some form of democracy and capitalism. So highest in the North and the West, lower in the South, like I think of Greece and Spain, right? And lowest in the East, areas again like Poland and Romania and Bulgaria, so forth. All right. Know the climate types of Europe and Russia, and where it's warmest and where it's warmer and where it's colder. Okay, so in Europe, it's a Mediterranean climate along the Mediterranean Sea. It's really nice, like on the French Riviera, Italian Riviera, in Greece. Some of these areas are really, really nice. It's a climate kind of like Southern California along the beach, like Santa Barbara or like Malibu or Huntington Beach. Okay, so that would be really nice. So in Western Europe, it's more marine West Coast, and that would be more like probably think Vancouver in Canada, or more like Seattle or Portland. And then further north and east in Europe, it's a continental climate, right, where it would be more like Canada, as an example. And the characteristics of these climates, Mediterranean climates are just nice. It's really nice summers. It's warm to hot depending on how close you are to the ocean. Right next to the ocean, like in Morro Bay, it would be pretty mild climate, definitely. But you go to Sacramento, it would be a warm type of a Mediterranean climate. So maybe 10 to 25 inches of precipitation in that climate. That marine west coast climate, which covers like England, the coast of Norway, lots of Western Europe, is cool, cloudy, foggy, rainy weather most of the year, or like 25 to 40 or 50 inches of precipitation. The continental climate, it has butt cold winters. I mean, very, very cold winters, but not bad in the summertime. It warms up, and that would be a lot of Northern Europe and Eastern Europe also. Okay, I think that would be good. As far as Russia goes, Russia has a lot of continental climate, that really cold winters, and it has subarctic climates too in Siberia, where it's even really cold winters and cool summers even. It doesn't warm up that much. There's no big sun belt in Russia. You'd have to go down around the Black and the Caspian Seas where you might get some warmer weather down there. It'd actually be like desert and steppe climates down in that area. Scandinavian climates are Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Okay, I'm turning it over. You're probably going to the next page on the computer. Understand some of the global consequences of the collapse of communism in the Soviet Union. Now, we're going to pass on that because that's going to be primarily your essay question, which I'll get to in a moment. What is Europe's busiest inland waterway? That would be the Rhine River. Know the major manufacturing regions of Russia and Ukraine. So there's the central industrial region around Moscow. There's the Volga River region along the Volga River. It's a highly industrialized river. The Urals area, that's heavily industrialized also. And the Donetsk Basin, called the Donbass, Donbas, is in eastern Ukraine. And this is where Russian separatists are located. It seems to me that Vladimir Putin would like to have that section of Ukraine, would give him a quarter to the Crimea Peninsula, which they invaded also. Russia did a few years ago. And this is where heavy industry is in Ukraine. So anyway, so Donbass in Ukraine. Volcanic areas of Russia, why don't you just go with out in the east, the Kamchatka Peninsula. This is where one plate's diving beneath another, creating volcanic activity. Where would the largest average annual temperature ranges be in Russia? First of all, an average annual temperature range is the difference between the warmest monthly average and the coolest monthly average. For example, here in Morro Bay, let me just guess here, it might be, 15, 20 degrees max difference between the warmest monthly average, coolest monthly average. You get in places in Siberia, it can be 110, 115 degrees difference between the warmest monthly average and the coolest monthly average. Populations of Russia, Ukraine, and Germany, and the population growth rates. Okay, Russia's got about 130 million people, and the population is actually decreasing. The population growth rate is -1. Ukraine has 43 million people. Its population is declining also at a rate of about 0.5% per year. Germany is at about 82 million, and their population growth rate is 0. They're not growing. Is Northern Ireland part of the United Kingdom? It is. Back in the early 1920s, Ireland became self-governing, except for 6 counties in the north, Northern Ireland. They chose to remain under control of the British because they're primarily Anglican Protestant, and the majority of the country of Ireland happens to be Roman Catholic, so they feared political, religious, and economic persecution. Okay. All right, let's see. Where is Russian agricultural productivity the highest? Okay, so that would be west of the Ural Mountains on the Moscow Plain. Um, and where's the population density the greatest? That's also west of the Ural Mountains. A fjord, what is it? Where will you find them in Europe? A fjord is a glacial valley flooded by the sea. If you can picture Yosemite Valley filled with water, that's what a fjord looks like. So, back during the Pleistocene epoch, if you remember, there were four major ice ages over the last 1 or 2 million years, and at those times, sea level would be lower. So you had glaciers coming out of the mountains in Norway, coming down to a sea level that was lower. Glaciers carved U-shaped valleys. Beginning maybe 10, 12,000 years ago, things had warmed up significantly and sea level had gone back up. And now those glacial valleys are filled with water, and that's what a fjord is. It makes for beautiful scenery. What is polder and where is it located in Europe? Polder is land reclaimed from the sea, and you'll find this in Netherlands, or Holland, if you want to call it that, commonly called Holland in Europe. So what they've done is they pumped the seawater out and built these dams and dikes and seawalls to keep the ocean out. And a lot of people live on polder in the Netherlands. Okay, and they farm that land also. Religious regions of Europe. Southwest Europe is Roman Catholic. Southeast Europe is Eastern Orthodox. Okay, and Northern Europe, further north you go, the more you find the different versions of the Protestant religions. Okay, so Protestantism more in the north, Roman Catholicism in the southwest, Eastern Orthodox Church in the southeast. Okay, what is the industrial heartland? Where is the industrial heartland of Germany? That's the Rhine-Ruhr. It's where the Rhine River intersects with the Ruhr River, Ruhr Valley. Germany's economy is extremely export-oriented. They make a lot of money by selling automobiles, precision instruments. They even build ships up in the north, so export-oriented. Okay, sovkhozes and kolkhozes, these were farming enterprises that were created by Joe Stalin in the late 1920s, early 1930s. Sovkhozes, those were state farms. They were really big, thousands of acres, heavily industrialized. They would focus on one or two crops, workers paid by the hour. Kolkhozes were more true collectives. They were smaller, still really big, maybe 5, 10,000 acres. But they would focus more on a variety of products because the people that lived on the collectives would eat some of the food. They would also be paid with a share of the crop, right? Like any profits that were made after selling the crop to the government. So sovkhozes and kolkhozes. Sovkhozes were the state farms. Okay, kolkhozes were the collectives. Sovkhozes bigger, right? Focused on maybe one or two crops and heavily industrialized, workers paid by the hour. The kolkhozes were smaller, greater variety of crops, and you were paid a share of the profit, if there was any, after the crop was sold to the government stores. Glasnost, perestroika. Glasnost means openness within Soviet society. Perestroika was economic restructuring. These were policies created by Mikhail Gorbachev back in the late 1980s. He tried to reform the Soviet Union, and it didn't work. It resulted in a military coup against Mikhail Gorbachev in the late 1980s. Forget the matching sections. So